Welcome into another week of Every Day We're Covering. Chris Parks, SJ Munoz with you once again as the college football season has officially come to an end. The national championship was decided last night as we record this here on Tuesday. And SJ, well, I guess probably this week we're going to be more focused on the beverage talk than we are about our picks because it wasn't such a great weekend for us.
Yeah, we're gonna need a big comeback here, as they call it. Then yesterday is a day to forget as far as gambling goes. At least for us, I'm sure some people ended up doing okay, depending on what side you're on. But maybe a little let down, maybe just a little bit unforeseen circumstances, however you want to look at it. But I guess I was a little bit left wanting more, and I don't think I'm alone in that.
Yeah, and we'll get to the breakdown of the game here coming up in just a little bit, so we can kind of dive into some of the details. But I'm kind of with you. I'm leaning towards that narrative here. We'll get into it in just a little bit. Of course, we'll talk about how we did with our picks. Was not very good as we alluded to. But also, of course, what are we lubricating ourselves with and preparing us to have a bounce back weekend because we're going to do some NFL coming up here for you for the wild card weekend. I ripped one out of I went back to this mix pack. I just can't seem to get away from it every time I see it on the shelves. It's like, man,
Calling your name every
yeah.
time you see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty good price, and it's got some different beers that I like, so I like kind of like mixing it up, so it's perfect. So, but anyways, this is another one out of that pack. The good old folks up there in Wisconsin at Leinenkugel's, they've got one in there called a Honey Lemon Light, and it's just a nice, light, easy drinking beer, and it's not too heavy on the flavor, so where it's overbearing, it's just got that nice little kind of, I don't know, sour kick almost a little bit, and I enjoy it. How about yourself?
Yeah, much of the, I guess, middle of the country, even extending beyond that, it's kind of dealing with a little bit of a winter storm here, depending on what part you're in. You might get some ice. Even last night, I guess they had some serious weather has been out in the Houston area, and I seen some video of a leak in the roof, and I thought it could be an interesting night, but it looks like they did okay down there and getting the game in and no delays of that sort. But say that to kind of when those storms hit or when they know they're coming, what is it? The milk, bread, and the eggs just fly off the shelves, and it's a panic time. And
You
it's
got to get ready to make that
back to
French
the
toast.
yeah, back to the pandemic days. But basically, I mean that I don't necessarily go for that, but typically when I make a run there, but I know I'm gonna hunker down and kind of be stuck inside. I'm getting me a pretty good sizable case of booze there, and typically I know I'm gonna be in for a while, and I'm probably gonna be drinking for an extended period of time. So I go simple. I go to something, a good American lager, and I just went Bud Light. Nothing, nothing fancy today. Kind of, that may be a better, or I guess, a result of the poor picks we made last week. So I'm gonna, not living large. So I'm just going, simple, simple American lager today. But no, I mean, I still like it. I know they tried to, run their name in the mud, but it's an easy drinker for me. So I'll cheers to that anytime I get the chance.
Yeah, well, yeah, like you said, we kind of ended up in the discount section this week, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what you got to do.
I have to hit the outlet this week. I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a couple of snowed type days around my parts, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
getting a little old with that narrative. I did see that somebody made that comment. It's like, oh, time for the French toast run. We got to get the milk, bread, and the eggs. So that's a good
Never
way to look
fails
at
is
it.
the thing. It's like
It's
you
funny.
joke, but you look at any store you go to,
Oh, I
it's
know.
gone. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not. There's some truth to it, unfortunately.
there is. So yeah, we're gonna power through ignore out the window, I guess, here today and enjoy being indoors talking about some football. Let's recap the picks here for you real quick because obviously we want to forget about it as quick as we can. Uh,
Yeah, let's
we
go ahead and make this quick. Yeah.
rip the band-aid off. The FCS championship, we threw that one in there for fun for you, and it was South Dakota State taking care of business, 23-3, their win over Montana. We thought that Montana at least would kind of hang around and be close enough because they were getting 13 points when we talked about it. But yeah, not quite enough. They didn't quite get enough offense going. Credit to South Dakota State. They played a pretty good game. They were really balanced on offense. They had about 363 yards, and that was really split between the pass and the run game. And their defense was pretty good, 5 sacks in the game. So really had a big impact on that end, and they're the back-to-back champions. So congratulations to the Jackrabbits.
Yeah, it was one of those deals where Montana really had to kind of maximize the opportunities that they had. And early on, they were stopped on a 4th and goal, and that's kind of where at least for me on my end, I started to sweat a little bit, and I said that's not good for that spread there. You need to any chance you get to score, especially on a team that's going for a back to back or a repeat title. You got to take advantage of those, and I mean I guess that kind of carried over to maybe what we saw last night too. But just those little opportunities come few and far between when you're the underdog, the overmatched opponent. You kind of got to cash in on those, and they didn't, and that's why they ended up kind of pulling away there in the second half and late in the game.
And then we moved on to some games in the NFL that we threw in there for you on Sunday. Just a few things that we saw that we thought might look good here to us, and then most of them did not turn out to be too good. The Cleveland Browns, you had them on the money line, and they got thumped by the Bengals. 31-14 was the final in that ball game. I don't know kind of what the issue was, whether just playing bad, lack of motivation because they knew they're still in. How that played, I don't know, but rough game there for them. They'll try to bounce
Well, I
back
mean, you
and
knew
get
they
the
were going to
Texans.
sit some guys, but at the same time, Bengals they had zero to play for either. So I don't
Hmm.
understand why they were able to, kind of, rally the troops for a week when you couldn't. I get that the starters were out and that sort of thing, but it just didn't. I would have thought 75% Browns is better than a 90% Bengals, but and I was wrong. Apparently, they're not.
Yeah, yeah, not that day. This next one, I was really shocked by. Not, I guess, not the fact that they ended up losing. I guess, but just the fact the way the game played out. I had Jacksonville laying 5.5 to win and try to get themselves into the playoffs. I mean, no more motivator than that. And they lose to Tennessee, a team that really had struggled, and they of course brought back, the quarterback of the old to take over again in there in Tannehill, and they win at 28-20. But they were up by 14 a couple of different moments in that game. That's what really shocked me is the way that Jacksonville got down and had to try to rally so hard, and they just they got themselves too big a hole. They couldn't do it.
Yeah, and it's one thing like the game we just talked about where the Browns, nothing would have mattered whether they won or lost, obviously. But this, when you literally have to win to get in, and you go and do that, and even just down the stretch, what the last 4 or 5 games is,
Hmm.
I mean, pissed it down their leg is about the only way to describe it. It's got to be really frustrating if you're a fan of that team because they everything was there for the taking. At one point, I believe they had a decent shot at least at the number one seed.
Yeah, a lot of people were talking them up early in the season, the way that they started and the way they were playing, and yeah, the wheels fell off for sure there at the end of the season. You took a flyer on the Bears, maybe pulling one off against the Packers, and it was a decent game. They lost 17-9 the final. Bears were getting 3, so not quite enough there to cover the spread. And the Packers, of course, set themselves up now for a postseason matchup in Dallas. Not hugely, I guess, disappointing, but the Bears had one of those seasons where it looked like it could have been a real tanker, and they rallied hard at the end of the season. You got to give them a little credit.
Yeah, and at least they were competitive. Like you said, it was a close. It was only a 3 points they were getting, so it was a bit of a flyer. But at the same time, I thought maybe the bad blood there would be enough to maybe they could kind of stick it to them in that case. It didn't, but at least they were in it and competitive. Unlike some of the other teams that maybe we saw yesterday or on Sunday, excuse me, they at least put up a good fight.
Yeah. The only one that we hit here over the weekend, I had Tampa Bay. They were laying 5, and they end up winning it by a whopping 9-0 score over Carolina. So not near very impressive, and they just barely get the cover. But hey, I guess I'll take one. And they kind of limp their way now into the playoffs as well. And we'll get to that in here in a minute. That's a pretty interesting game though. Two teams that have kind of been on the struggle bus here in Philadelphia and Tampa Bay playing that last wild card game. And then Miami Buffalo, we were looking for the over 50 in that big game that set up in the nightcap and did not turn out to be the shootout that you would expect those two teams to play at all. 21-14 the final. Buffalo wins it. I'm not surprised by who won the game, but was surprised by the way the scoring went. I don't blame you at all for taking that one.
Then it would have helped if Allen would have threw it to his Bills receivers rather than the Dolphins. That usually makes a difference. What 2 or 3 of those, I mean, legit touchdown opportunities that kind of wipe off the board. So when that starts happening, that total it starts looking less and less like a possibility. Just didn't play out like we thought. Obviously, both teams have been rather explosive this season, but for one reason or another, it wasn't there for either team that night.
Yeah, no, not at all. And then, of course, we moved on to the last game of the college football season, the national championship college football playoff down in Houston at Energy Stadium. And the Michigan Wolverines pull it off. 34-13 is the final. They are national champions. We both had Washington. I had Washington on the money line. You had Washington getting 4.5. And obviously, we're going to start to break down some of this game. But, kind of initial thoughts on how you thought that played out there, SJ.
Well, I mean, against all odds for Michigan, right? Nobody gave him a chance. I've got to get that out of the way first.
Michigan versus everybody.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. When we kind of previewed the game, we one thing that was making me a little nervous was the run defense in the Michigan's attack. And early on, I was not one more drive, and I was about to turn the game off. I'm sure I wasn't alone because it did not look good early. I mean, Michigan straight ahead running. It wasn't anything fancy. Of course, there was a little bit of a shift here or there, but basically they just ran it ran it at him and said, "Stop us." Luckily, Washington figured it out and kind of slowed that run down at least until late in the game when they kind of just wore him down. Basically, they Washington put their defense on the field far too many times, and the offense just couldn't capitalize. And another big, issue that we talked about heading in, especially after the semifinals, was mistakes that were made in key opportunities. And at that time, it was more of just the, elementary, simple things, just not using your head, not being, kind of focused and locked in. In this case, seemed to be more about plays that they had made all season, but for, couldn't make the throws. And that's pressure. Is it just an off day? Whatever it is, it's the worst time, obviously, for that to happen. Penix did not look anything like we'd seen him all season, and of course, you got to give a little credit to Michigan, but at the same time, it was. I mean, there was times nobody was in his face, and he was 5 or 6 yards off with his long ball, which we talked about how accurate he's been, especially in clutch situations. I can't imagine it's nerves. Maybe I just had an off night. I don't know.
Yeah, that on that side of the ball, obviously, that was the most shocking thing of the night. The fact that we just did not see the Michael Penix that we expected to see, and that's kind of what both of us obviously were basing our pick off. The guy was just absolutely on fire the last two games that he played. Beating Oregon again in the fashion that he did, and then winning the semifinal game with just throwing the ball and dropping balls in the bucket all over the place. I mean, he had a bunch of great throws in that Texas game, and then yeah. You almost saw maybe one all night that I saw that you looked at and was like, oh, that's pretty good throw there. But the rest of them, yeah, he's just off. And a couple of times you saw maybe a little bit of discussion between him and the receiver afterwards, whether or not maybe they were sometimes a little bit off the same page. But I guess I just felt like. I'm going to give Michigan a lot of credit. Like you said, that explosive run game in the first quarter is what made the difference in the game. Making those types of runs early and setting that kind of tone is what won it. And then the defense did enough to kind of like mix things up. Obviously, they were going to play don't take the top off. They played a lot of guys back, and that helped them a lot trying to keep things underneath. And they did get some pretty decent pressure throughout the night. But I had some people that I was discussing with some friends, or I saw some comments online too about how, well, this is why Michael Penix got out of the Big Ten, and he's seeing it again. And it's like, to me, yeah, there was some good pressure there all night, but it wasn't the kind of pressure to me that should have absolutely destroyed his game. I mean, you're going to make some throws with guys breathing down your neck, and you're going to get hit sometimes because that's just the nature of football. Like, the same thing happens for the best players in the game in the NFL. You don't see, Patrick Mahomes standing back there untouched throwing the ball all the time. He's running for his life half the time. That's the way it is. I mean, you have to find a way to make those plays and make those throws. And it just seemed like to me when that pressure came to him, he was always kind of like maybe one flinch ahead of himself. He was just so panicked to get the ball out sometimes that he just didn't step in and make a good throw, or maybe just take that one step up into the pocket and then throw it instead of kind of leaning forward or off balance. It just, I don't know. I think he was just kind of in his head a little bit, and then that motor was running a little too fast.
Well, I'm sure if they knew the why, they would have fixed it in real time. And of course, we don't know the why either, but it was just very uncharacteristic to say the least. And course, if you knew that was going to happen, the pick totally changes. It's a whole different game. If you tell me Penix going to have the worst game of his life, there's no way Washington wins, and obviously we saw that. But even the final score, I still think it was a little bit closer of a game than what that would indicate. Michigan clearly was the better team on that day, but I don't think it was a 20 some point better team. They ended up kind of wearing them down, like I said, and some of it's on the receivers as well. Whether they're starters or backups. There was two or three big plays that were catchable balls that were dropped. So we got to kind of spread the blame evenly. It wasn't just on Penix. He just obviously quarterback always gets all the credit and all the blame at the same time. So that's just kind of nature of the position. But it wasn't all on him. But just not what we expected. And like I said before, it's just kind of I don't know. It's a little bit of I guess I don't even know how you want to describe it. A ho hum, just like an okay game. Not won't be one that I'll be going back to watch anytime sooner. Not definitely not up there with the classics or anything like that when it comes to title games.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. I think that like you said at the beginning, that kind of left you wanting more was after that first quarter and those big plays by Michigan. The rest of the game was basically an offensive turd. Like neither
Yeah.
team. I mean, neither team made play. I mean, because Michigan had plenty of opportunities where they could have made it, out of reach in the first half if they would have kept playing well, but they didn't. They missed a lot of plays too. They dropped some balls. McCarthy was off quite a bit too in that first half throwing the ball. So both teams I think had their share of those. Yeah, kind of like just not making the play, not making the big play in the big moment kind of thing. And the defense did make some of that happen, but it wasn't like there was a lot of spectacular, miraculous takeaways on the other side either. So yeah, just one of those kind of ho-hummers a little bit and turned into a doldrum of a game. And yeah, I think college football fans are probably most of them are walking away a little bit disappointed with not seeing the game that they thought they were going to see.
Yeah, of course, making the picks, you want to always be right. So that's that's part of it. But at the same time, I would trade that. I would definitely last night would have traded that off for being a 35-28 down to the wire type game, back and forth all night. That would have been at least got if I'm not if you're not gonna get your prediction right, at least entertain me at the least. And I didn't feel like I was entertained. I definitely made more trips to the refrigerator or the bathroom and just do a chore here and there around the house than I normally would during a game. I don't usually get up from my seat too much unless it's an emergency type situation. But that game, it didn't need to be watched from beginning to end. It was just not that entertaining. But if you get the title, you get the title. So I don't think Michigan cares too much how good it looked.
Yeah. Well, and one thing too, I wanted to get your take on this because at the end I was a little bit annoyed, and not I don't know. I mean, maybe annoyed isn't the right word, but at the end, obviously Penix took some late hits there where it must have it hurt him a little bit. He was holding the ribs, but then that last couple of drives where the game was obviously over. They knew it was over. They trot him back out there, and he's just like almost can't walk, kind of like how he's acting. And it's like, if that's the way it's going to be, just take him out of the game. I mean, it's over. Yeah, it's your last game of your college career, but you're probably going to play more football in your life. Like, you're probably not done as a QB. You'll go get a chance to do something in the NFL. If you're that hurt, just throw somebody else out there and give them a chance to make it through a few throws. I just thought that was kind of, I don't know, maybe a bad decision by both him and the coaching staff just to be out there dragging himself around.
Seemed a little bit dramatic. I'm sure he wasn't feeling. I mean, he got hit. I mean, he didn't get sacked. I mean, maybe one time for sure.
One
maybe
time,
another,
yeah, one
but
time.
He got hit quite a bit, so I'm sure he wasn't feeling that great. But yeah, like you said, if you can't do the job, put somebody else. And then at the same time, who knows when you'll get back to another title game? So maybe give a backup that's going to play for you next year. I know they have the transfer, but somebody on the roster already. They give him some snaps on title game. Who knows where that could end up? Kind of motivating somebody or being a kickstart to next year or the year after that. Who knows?
Yeah. Of course, the other thing that gets all wrapped in all of this too, and I guess part of some of the reason why maybe I let a little bit of my college football bias move into the way I wanted this game to go too, but is all the other nonsense that went on throughout the season. Obviously, there's still a cloud hanging over Michigan and the things that went and gone off the field, and I think you and I are probably pretty much on the same page on how we really feel about that. As far as the actual violations and what of it are concerned, yeah, it's dumb and it's stupid, but it's not like the end of the world type of thing. It's just the way that they treated it and reacted to it that we were so disgusted by throughout the year, making this such a fake emotional situation where it really wasn't. And that's what's tough about seeing, a goofball like Harbaugh up there praising that, it's all about, his faith and all this stuff that brought him through it when it was, you on the sidelines because you had somebody being an idiot.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to unless you've been a lifelong fan or someone that went to school there. It's kind of hard to be on that side and kind of other than maybe you like the style of play and some of the players on the team,
Yeah.
the whole dog and pony show that's for for everybody else, and even playing the victim in much of the situation was kind of it was a joke that just kind of never ended basically, and not a good joke either. Just that's it's got to the point where it's like even if you did like him and you were just like, oh, kind of on the fence and almost, drove you the other way to be like, I don't want anything, do with this team. They're just, kind of annoying, always got something to complain about. It's always somebody else's fault. And I don't think many of us like people that have that mindset or treat just life in general like that. It's not a good way to go through things, always kind of pointing the finger at somebody else. But either way, they got the job done. It'd have been nice to see maybe, a different storyline. They could
Yeah.
have easily switched to something else. There's plenty of good stories on that team. I know I saw a decent piece that Game Day did, surprisingly, on Blake Corum, just his upbringing and things of that sort, and how he kind of got to Michigan. There was plenty of other things that could have been focused on besides that, but I know that's what gets the clicks, and that's why you got the the McAfees of the world and that type sitting on your studio set rather than doing your job and actually being a journalist. But that's where we are, and that's just the way it's going to be at least until they find a way to kind of get back to what it's really about and why we cover sports and why we love watching them, that type of thing.
Yeah. Well, and and don't tell me that kids don't pay attention because my son, unfortunately, wanted to play devil's advocate with me last night, and he's like, "Oh, Michigan's going to win. I know Michigan's going to win. It's Michigan versus everybody." He saw those shirts, like he knew what was going on. Like it's like, dang it, they're killing me, man. I can't stand this.
There goes your TV time. You're cut. You're
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a bad influence because at one point he did say, "How old do you have to be to bet on games, Dad?" He's like, "Because I would have bet
no.
on Michigan."
Well, at the least you got you're hedging yourself there. So just make sure you get
That's true.
the higher amount on the right side. But at the least you're both. At least the
Yeah,
household's a winner that way.
yeah. That was pretty funny. We're gonna move on though into moving to the NFL here in a moment, but that does put a bow on the college football playoff. The nice thing is that also ushers in the new era of college football because next year we're gonna have a 12-team playoff. We're gonna get rid of that whole Florida State debacle argument and some of those things that go along with it. Some of the mid-major teams, that maybe have a great year that they're probably going to get their crack now, and then all that stuff's going to go away. So I think we're definitely looking forward to that being the case next year and maybe losing some of those negative storylines.
And I know there was some we discussed the the kind of hand wringing and the concern about the the validity of the bowls. I think if anything, this could maybe give it a boost. Get some more meaning to some of these games that have lost it over the years for whatever reason. Just obviously, I mean, there is a lot of bowls. I'll say that, but we still watch them. So obviously, there's interest. But let's try to do everything we can to kind of maybe increase that interest, and hopefully, it'll just be that much more. I honestly think it's going to be that much more exciting. The adding the teams. I know there's a lot of people kind of against it, but uh, do anything new, and there's going to be a segment that's going to be against it. So we'll see how it goes. It'll be at least in the first few years, kind of see how it shakes out. I think it's at the least be entertaining. Can never guarantee competitive games because we even saw it in the 14 playoff until
Hmm.
the last couple of years.
Yeah,
Most of those games haven't been competitive, so there is no guarantee with adding. The four didn't bring any guarantees of a competitive game. I think with the 12 year, just being more games, there's a better chance of at least two or three of them being pretty quality, entertaining, and watchable games.
yeah, it's going to bring some intrigue, that's for sure. And we'll see how a lot of things work out. There's going to be, of course, a lot of wrinkles and how they set this up. What days games are played and all that kind of stuff's going to be interesting too. But we're looking forward to having more teams involved. It should be a good time. So we'll of course touch on more college football topics as they come along throughout the year. We'll have plenty of that, I'm sure, in the offseason rumbling. But we're going to move on here to the NFL, and we are going to get into some games here for you as well. But one thing we wanted to touch on real quick before we get into the picks was just a couple of the little storylines that have been floating around in the NFL as well. Of course, it's the time of the year when the regular season comes to an end. You start to see some guys, seeing the door and never coming back again. And we've seen that in a couple of locations now, including one down in Atlanta that turned out to be pretty interesting with Arthur Smith getting the can. And he wasn't so happy that his team was getting his butt whooped at the end of the season.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, honestly, like, I don't. I kind of wish we would see this more. I think he was on the wrong side of it. At the same time, though, it's entertaining and it's more genuine, I guess, because I think a lot more coaches would want to do this, and I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. And I don't think it's a bad thing. It's you're playing in a there's a lot of pressure involved. We've talked about with coaches, and high stakes, high wages. It's a cutthroat business. So I do think I enjoy it. Obviously, in hindsight, I'm sure it's a little embarrassing and things of that sort, and people kind of run with it and poke fun here and there, which and that's par for the course. Comes with the territory. I don't think that's bad either. I like it, especially when coaches go on the rants. We've talked about it. Several that happened this season and just in the past, the all-time classics like Dennis Green and Jim Mora. It's amazing. It puts a personality to them. They're not just the robot coach. We always want them to be people and kind of be like us. And I mean that's what I would do. I think that's what a lot of people would do. So of course, like I said, I think he was on the wrong side of the argument, but I appreciate the vulnerability, if you will, or just being an actual person. I appreciate that part of it.
Yeah, he had a little altercation at the end of the game after the Saints got a late score. Of course, they had already kind of put the run up on him before that, so that just added salt to the wound. And he got a little mad about it and had some words afterwards. And of course, a day later, he doesn't have a job, so it doesn't matter anyways. Like you said before, we were talking, maybe he knew that was coming, so he's like, yeah, let's just go ahead
One
and let it
last
all
shot
out.
in, yeah.
Let it all hang out.
I mean, I'm honestly surprised we haven't seen more. Not encouraging it, but at the same time, I'm not surprised there hasn't been more physical altercations on the sidelines. Of course, we had the Buddy Ryan back in the day and things of that sort. But I'm honestly surprised it doesn't happen more often because the stuff that those people say to each other in the game and on the sidelines, you want to talk about conduct detrimental to the team in certain situations. Most people would be as you know as freaking blushing as a little school child down there on the sideline. Some of the stuff that's said in the course of an NFL game or any sport, not just NFL. I'm not gonna just call out one league. It's interesting the things that you hear down there.
Yeah, no, no question about that. You ever get to see some of those unedited NFL films clips from the sidelines? You start to understand what it's really like
Well,
down there.
I don't have the money or the power or anything like that, but that's always been my my brain or my like dream. I think it'd be amazing with the Hard Knocks deal. You do one, just one game every year. Just let the mics live, let them hot, and just in what do you call it? Like watch it, in a as you would if you were there on the sideline.
Yeah.
Just let them fly. Like everything that's said on the sidelines, you pick it up and you get a little bit more of a. I think it'd just be a little bit more of an authentic feel of what the game's really like, and it'd just be interesting and entertaining too. I just would think it. I guess that kind of stems more from the lack of quality, play by play and analysts these days. The type they're hiring, I guess maybe that speaks more to that. But I think it'd be interesting nonetheless, and I think I definitely that's one. I'm not going to be like these people complaining about streaming. I'd pay extra money for that. That's a pay-per-view deal. I'm in for that. Just something different to give you the
Yeah.
give you a different view of the game.
Well, even just to know a little bit more about how the discussions go, between coaches and
Right.
players and between coaches themselves. And yeah, it would definitely go a long way to understanding things a little bit more and how it works. I guess that's one thing myself. Even just coaching. I've obviously never coached anything important, but I've doing some youth sports coaching, and even in that, like you get in the moment and you realize sometimes like as a coach like the things that you miss that you should have caught Like someone is distracting you at a moment, you want to be focused on something else, and yeah, it can be difficult. It's definitely an interesting experience, and that would shine some light on it for sure. As we move into the wild card weekend, though, we're going to take a look at these games. There's 2 games on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and then they'll finish up with a Monday night game to finish off all these wild card contests. And the first one that we will get it started with on Saturday will be the afternoon window at 3:30 between the Browns and the Texans down in Houston. 44.5 is the number. Browns right now, I have it as a 2.5 point favorite in that contest. What are we looking at here, SJ?
Well, they let me down last week, but I'm gonna say they're not. This be a different Browns team. They've had a pretty, well, I mean, statistically, the number one defense in the league, so that's nothing to sneeze at. You don't often think of defense when you think of Cleveland, but in this
Oh,
case, that's the fact. And even what less than what well, just a couple weeks ago on Christmas Eve, there I guess it was. Yeah, that seems about a couple weeks ago. They ended up knocking off the Texans here by what 14 points.
hmm
And that Texans only lost in the last 4 games, so they're coming in pretty decent. I do think at full strength, Cleveland is just the better team. That 2.5 is a small enough spread, which makes you realize how close that this game probably is going to be. But I think they can cover that. I think they can get honestly, I think it'd be more like a 7 point win. I think they'll come out on top. The Browns. I'm gonna take those points.
I have been very impressed, obviously, with what the Texans have done. You got to give a lot of credit to D'Amico Ryans and also to C.J. Stroud coming in and playing the way he has as a rookie. I don't think anybody saw him playing this well this early on, and maybe a guy that could be a good player, but he's really done a lot for that team. But I'm with you as well. I think that you have a young quarterback that's going to face off against a Miles Garrett and a front that's really good and a defense that's really good. And the Browns are good enough offensively, enough weapons spread around the field that, yeah, I think they get that done. I think it's going to be about a touchdown type of win for them. So I'm going to go with the Browns. I'm with you on that one. The next one we'll go to on Saturday night is the Kansas City Chiefs playing host to the Miami Dolphins. And right now, Kansas City, a 4 point favorite, 43.5 is the number here in this game. And obviously, these teams did play earlier in the season. It was overseas in Germany. A pretty entertaining game. 21-14, the Chiefs won that contest. They kind of had got a couple of big defensive plays in that game to help them out as well. Miami's kind of been just a little weird, I think, here at the end of the season. They've been on a little bit of a downslide. They were being talked up so much with the offense with Tua, and obviously Tyreek Hill's had an awesome season. You don't take anything away from that. They do have a lot of playmakers, but they've had guys that have kind of been in and out of the lineup banged up too. So that's the question: how good are they feeling? And when you're on the road playing at Arrowhead against Patrick Mahomes, even though the Chiefs have had their own share of struggles, obviously I'm a little bit biased in this one because I'm a Chiefs fan, but I do think being at home at Arrowhead, and they're going to get it done here, there'll be no lack of motivation to try to beat Tyreek in Miami. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs to cover that 4.
Yeah, they're kind of similar, honestly, because especially the last few years, Chiefs have been almost an unstoppable offensive attack. And this year, Miami's at least last check I made, they were sitting as statistically the number one offense. But as you alluded to, down the stretch here, they've had some struggles and just kind of haven't been able to put it all together. I know they've been hit with a lot of injuries, mostly on defense. But at the same time, if your defense is out on the field more, that's going to cut down your possessions. And of course, it's going to affect your offense and the points you can put up and the numbers, that type of thing. I'm a little nervous because kind of seems like this is like almost like a no-brainer. It's easy money with that total. At least I was getting 44.
Mm-hmm.
Being it was a little low for these teams. You give yourself 24, 24, 21 gets you there. That doesn't
Yeah.
seem very high with these teams. So I'm a little more confident in picking that than I am one or the other because I could seriously see either of these teams winning this game, close win or pulling away just with the firepower. Just because the Chiefs are due to get hot. At the same time, I know we're looking at like I think a high temperature is like 5 degrees or something on Saturday here in KC. So that doesn't exactly bode well for offense. At the same time, I think with explosive as they are, um, and that could also factor into turnovers, given the teams a short field. Give these teams a short field, they're going to score a lot of points. So I'm going to take the overs on this. I know Dolphins kind of let down a little bit last week
Hmm.
offensively against the Bills, but I think that makes me think more that they're due for a due for a comeback because it's winter go home now. And lastly, I mean, I hope you have your Peacock ready because this is that exclusive game. So get do what you gotta do now, and don't wait till Saturday and wonder what's going on there when you can't find it on your local affiliate. I do know here though. I think
Yeah.
if you live in the KC market, I think they're showing it like on the local NBC. But outside of that, I believe it is the exclusive streaming game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can't say I didn't utter a couple words of the TV when I saw that was the case this week. But hey, it
That
is
may
what it
rhyme
is.
with peacock, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. not not my favorite idea, but we'll figure it out. The one thing that's weird about that, and I guess I'm going to find out because I'm actually going up to Ames on Saturday evening to watch an Iowa State basketball game. So we've already kind of decided. Well, I guess we're going to stay then, so I can watch the Chiefs
Right.
after that game's over. But how are different places going to handle that kind of thing too, with all the sports bars and stuff like that? And you got to handle all the streaming services things too. I mean, I'm sure they found a way to figure it out, but that's another kind of wrinkle to navigate for some of these places, and might hurt some businesses if they don't have that forethought, I guess.
Yeah, I just hope the awareness is there. That's the only thing. I just because you might not think of it and just think, oh, it's always on this channel. If it's maybe someone of a certain age, they just say, oh, my team's always on channel 6.
Yep.
Whatever. We're telling you plenty ahead of time, and I mean, either complain or watch it. I guess that's your two options. But I do think of all the streaming services, it is one that offers uh, enough to make it worth at least for a month's worth of $6 or whatever it
Yeah,
is. They
yeah.
do have a some of them. I'm with everybody. I'm like it's just a waste of money because you're gonna watch one game and then be done with it. But they do offer enough when it comes to movies, shows, even other sports that it's at least worthwhile. And especially they show a lot of college sports as well. So it might be at least for a month wise, I would probably give it a thumbs up. Other than that, it kind of just depends on your interest.
Yeah. We'll move on now here to Sunday, and this is when we're going to get three games. So I guess we'll kind of go back and forth here. I'll throw the first one out there. Pittsburgh at Buffalo. Buffalo, a 10-point favorite. I have it. This is a noon kickoff, and a fairly low number on this one. 36.5 is what I saw as I looked it up here this afternoon. So they're not trusting the Steelers to put up many points apparently. What are you what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, surprisingly, I mean, I guess I went back and looked, and I mean, I knew they'd won a few to get in and kind of made a late run. Buffalo, that is, but they haven't lost since that overtime Philly loss back in what was that right after Thanksgiving weekend, or maybe it was on Thanksgiving around that time. So it's been over a month since they last lost. So that kind of leans makes you pretty confident in them, but at the same time, the Steelers kind of pulled victory from the jaws of defeat there by getting in the playoffs. They
Hmm.
looked dead to rights, but uh, somehow they kind of got in. I guess it's a what are you gonna do? A death taxes Steelers joke. I'm sure there's been plenty of those flying around.
Hmm.
But I do think that that 9.5 is pretty high. I don't know. That just seems like a lot for a playoff game. Especially, I assume this is going to be an ugly game because, like we talked about from the pick we made last week, Buffalo's offense has not looked good for quite some time. I don't see them blowing anybody out. And to me, 10 points in an NFL game that's a blowout. I don't
Hmm.
think they're going to win by that much. So I still think they're going to win. But for me, I'm gonna play the spread and take Pittsburgh to cover that. I expect Buffalo to get the job done, but I don't think they can cover that number. That's pretty high for a playoff game that could be impacted by weather, of course, just the way it's going across the whole country.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thoughts when I saw that number there. Obviously Buffalo has been playing pretty well here down the stretch, well enough to, keep winning. That's all that matters, right? Getting the W in the W column. They've been doing that. But yeah, the offense hasn't not exactly looked crisp. There's a lot of guys that just don't seem to be on the same page, and Josh Allen, you just kind of never know what you're going to get game in and game out with him sometimes. And of course, they're playing a Steelers team that that's kind of what they lean on is the defensive side of the ball. T.J. Watt for the third straight season led the league in sacks, which is pretty incredible for. And, he's the only player to ever do that. So certainly a guy that will impact the game. I think that keeps them close enough too. Pittsburgh's going to be just absolutely nothing to lose type of game for them. So they'll keep it close enough. But I do think Buffalo's going to win. But yeah, I think that number's too high. So I'm going to be right there with you. What we got in the afternoon then?
The next one I had up was Green Bay and Dallas. Dallas is kind of another one of those teams that's maybe like limping in somewhat, so to speak. Green Bay kind of seems to have maybe found their mojo at the end of the season. I don't mean playing in that division. Take it for what you will. The numbers I'm getting right now, Dallas is 7.5 point favorite. Total is 50.5.
Yeah.
Did that help you make up your mind there?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, Green Bay does have a tendency to make things not fun for Dallas. They have done that in the past, but and Dallas, of course, is not known for executing well when it comes time to play in the playoffs. And they certainly have had some duds here down the stretch of the season. They had that little stretch where they lost the 2 games straight and had another that was real close and wasn't the Detroit obviously was controversial that game, but they did play.
Yeah, that
better.
definitely should have been a loss.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no way around that one.
Yeah.
Even a Dallas fan, if they are honest, they're gonna just you smile and you take the wins, but there's no way that was the right call.
Mm-hmm. Boy, I don't know. Something tells me that Dallas is going to play well enough to win this game finally and get to at least the next level of the playoffs. But that hook is annoying. I don't love that. I do not love that at all. I guess I'm going to say that Green Bay is going to keep it within 7. If it's going to stay at 7.5, I'm going to go Green Bay with the line, just because I think it'll be closer than that. I think Dallas finds a way to probably win it. Just if they can get the ball to CD Lamb enough, and then they will win. I guess I'll say Green Bay keeps it within a touchdown.
I'm with you, except for the fact that I think they will cover. Barely though. Maybe I could see a 10 point win at the most. I think, like you said, Green Bay has a history of we all remember the Des Bryant play and things. This like something always seems to happen when these two match up. I did mention that Dallas kind of limped in a little bit, but at the same time they did face 4. Within those games, 4 teams were playoff teams.
Yeah.
Kind of compare that to Green Bay beat Carolina, Minnesota, and Chicago down the stretch. So, like I said, it wasn't. I mean, you win the games, you got to win to get in. So that's what they had to do. But maybe getting inside those wins, it wasn't as maybe impressive. So that's kind of just I think a little bit more tested of a team. And you get a couple deep balls up to CD Lamb, and that's all. That's all it might take.
Yeah.
So.
Uh-huh.
I think that they can cover that number, but I don't think they'll cover it by much. I'm like you. I wish it was maybe a 6, a 6.5 if they want to put a hook on it. That would make me feel a little better. But I think that the firepower is going to be too much in the end for Green Bay. I think it can be competitive, but I think Dallas can cover that number.
All right. Then the last game that we'll have on Sunday will be the quarterback switch bowl with the LA Rams going on the road to take on the Detroit Lions. Lions right now, I'm seeing a 3-point favorite, and the number is at 51.5. It's a 7:15 p.m. kickoff. So is it Goff or Stafford?
Well, believe it or not, at least according to my research, which I think I'd put that up against anybody's. But with all seriousness, Lions are the best against the spread this season, 12-5. That gives me a little bit of confidence. I was a little bit questionable to see that injury to Laporta. Why we talked about what is Penix doing in the game there late, and that's kind of the same thing. They were pretty set for the playoffs. I understand you want to, he's the type of coach Campbell that's not just gonna, he's gonna say, oh, we're gonna play, and it doesn't matter what happens. He's kind of that old school type of guy, and I get that, but it doesn't look good when you do that, and then something like that happens to that big a part of your offense. So that's a little concerning, and the fact that the Rams have, kind of out of, under the radar, I guess, out of nowhere, put together a decent run here, and both of them are top 10 offenses. So you'd expect maybe a high scoring affair. course, weather's not going to be an issue. Both the indoor teams, I think the Lions can cover. Um, it's not could be a little dicey, and I could even see them having to come from behind. But I think they can get it done. I think I'm not going to go as far to say a team of destiny, but they've overcome a lot this season, and I think they've at least got a little bit more in them. One game at the least, if not a couple, in the playoffs. I think they just kind of with that old school mindset. I do think they're a little bit, maybe built for situations that you're going to see in the playoffs that other teams might not either be ready for or not know how to handle. I think they're going to be a little bit more battle tested, if you will say, at least mentally, and I think they can get over this first hump, and then depending who they have next round, maybe get a favorable matchup there.
Yeah, the Rams are definitely one of those teams where you do get a little bit leery because sometimes it's the team that gets hot or gets well at the right time that makes a run, and they certainly seem like they're that kind of team. Getting cut back late in the season, and obviously they found a gem in there in Nakua at the other on another wideout spot. In Stafford, he's a good quarterback, but I think Detroit, like you kind of alluded to, has proved throughout the season that they're a quality football team. Maybe they had a game or here that they'd like back, but overall had a pretty darn good season. They started off the season with that big win at Kansas City and just never really let off the gas from there. They kept playing well after that. So, I think that they get it done. I'm with you where this could be maybe a seesaw type of game, but being at home and a fan base that's so hungry for something good to happen, that'll help them get that win. I'm going to go Detroit as well. So that'll just leave us with the Monday night contest then.
Yeah, we talked. This could, I mean, maybe not the best game, but this could be one of the most interesting of the weekend. What do we got? Right now, Philly's getting 3-point favorite. 44 is the total. I know you kind of alluded to the matchup and the struggles they've faced heading in. Do you have a lean either way, or what are you thinking here as you break down this game and kind of look closer at it?
Yeah, Philly obviously is a great football team. They've been good for a while. They've got a lot of great pieces out there on the field. I don't really know what got into them here at the end of the season. They had that win. Everybody's, of course, the fan base that I follow is pointing to the fact that Sirianni was chirping on his way out of Arrowhead after they got their win, and they've been cursed ever since. Well, just kind of a coincidence, I think. They have not played well here at the end of the season. But a team that has that much experience and knows how to win, big games like this, yeah, maybe they had their letdowns, but I think they probably all had in the back of their mind that we're still going to be in the playoffs. We're still going to have a shot at this thing once we get there. Tampa Bay certainly has overachieved this year. I don't think anybody thought Baker Mayfield was going to play as well as he has throughout this season. But Philly's got too many weapons. If they figure it out and get going, no problem that they'll cover 3. I think they probably actually win this game by 10 plus. I'm going to go with the Eagles.
Yeah, and I think Tampa's a live dog for the fact that Philly's 1-5 in their last 6, and Tampa's the exact opposite, 5-1. That makes you think. I mean, because it is a game of momentum. I mean, any sport, it's momentum.
Yep.
You have that on your side. It's a big factor. And of course, like you mentioned, there's been some internal struggle. People are saying Hurts has been figured out, and he kind of just he got hot last year and just kind of made a run. I'm not ready to buy that. I understand he's not played well. At the same time, you don't go to the Super Bowl and be a couple plays away from winning by just getting on a heater and getting lucky. You
Yeah.
you have there's a whole resume there that kind of speaks to the opposite of that. So I mean, but that's what we do. We just kind of hop on the easy thing and uh, say someone's finished before they've even really started. I do think they just have too many other good skill players, and even their defense have struggled. But just the athletes that they have compared to the talent that Tampa has, I don't think it's going to match up well. If it was maybe a bigger number like the games we saw before, I might take a cover if it was a 10 or 12, which, before even a couple weeks ago, if you said these, if the playoffs ended today,
Yeah.
or if playoffs started
Yeah.
today, those stupid things, do that 3 weeks ago. And Philly's probably a 14-point favorite, something
Yeah,
like
you're
that.
probably right.
If that number's there, I'm all over that. But just being 3. I'm gonna go ahead and take Philly to cover that. I kind of want. I really wanted to mess with that total, but I don't know if Tampa can score enough to even to hit it either way. They might be 3 to 7 points here, and it could be an ugly affair too. Just uh, being the way that they kind of ended the season, Philly has they might only get to 21 or so. So I'm not as confident in that. I would have thought that would have been a good play, a few weeks ago, just like that total. So let's take Philly to cover the 3, but I still think Tampa's a live dog, and I wouldn't be against somebody, putting some money, putting something on them to, cover or maybe pull the upset.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting game, like we kind of alluded to. It should be fun to see how they come out and how motivated they are. I think one interesting thing I saw is this is likely it for Jason Kelsey, so you know that he's going to be amped up and ready to go, and he's certainly a guy that's pretty good at motivating others, so that's got to help them a little bit. But everybody wants to win. They're in the NFL. They want to win. They want to go to the Super Bowl. That's what they're all
Yeah.
out there playing for. So it'll
Well,
be fun.
especially now, everything, all the tough stuff. I mean, of course, you got to play the games, but all that, off season, all the camps and the training and the injuries, like now it's put up or shut up. I guess
Hmm.
it's like there's no one's gonna, you know, but at least intentionally, screw themselves out of a chance to go get to Super Bowl. There's no way. If they, got to do whatever they do to get on the field, and then once they get on the field, it's on. So
All right. Well, we'll have some fun watching the NFL here this weekend, and of course, we'll keep following that playoff train as it rolls along here as well on the program. Obviously, college football, we put a bow on that for now, and we'll continue to touch on many other topics as we move on here throughout the off season for that sport. But we'll try to get you some wins here or there. We're certainly hoping we're bouncing back from last week. That's all we can pray for. So we're gonna hope we
hey,
get you
not
in the
to
right.
not to brag on ourselves too much, but we this is the situation. We're not many people are going to pick every game, so you keep that in
That's
mind as
true.
well. We're taking a little bit of a leap here, but for me, it makes the game. I've never been a big NFL guy. I love football. Just NFL is not necessarily my cup of tea for a myriad of reasons, which is maybe an off-season topic we can get into. Comparing. Or why we became a fan, what we did. We'll get to that later. But this, for me, at least, makes it interesting, and kind of that's kind of the goal here for all of us, just to make there's a lot of games that even in we complain about the playoff and all that, but NFL has their share of stinkers in their playoff bracket. So at least this way we have something to root for, even if it's as simple as hitting that over or something like that. Makes things fun.
Yeah, we'll have a good time with it. We hope you do too. We appreciate you listening. As always, we're over the 20 episode mark now here as well. This is number 21, so it's
Flies.
crazy that we've already gotten here. But we appreciate people that have followed along and listened a little bit. You can share us on the number of platforms, whether that be Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts. You can find us all those locations. We'll share that stuff out on our socials as well, at SJM Bets, at Cherokee CP. You can find us on Twitter. We'll share, of course, the show, and then also we share graphics with you as well, letting you know how we're playing the games that week, so you can follow along with us and maybe make some plays, and then of course give us some feedback on those platforms or within the show platforms as well. We appreciate that. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. That's going to do it for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next week for some more covers.